And we are live. Happy Sunday live, everyone. Gordana, hello. Hello.
Hi, Lucas. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy
So
Sunday.
nice to be back this Sunday. I really look
Yes.
forward to these Sundays. I feel like the conversations are high level, high consciousness, loving conversations. And I hope that we have lots and lots of viewers and listeners today, because we're going to continue to talk about how to bypass your ego and how to find your true inner voice. We liked it so much last Sunday that we decided that we'll do part 2 today.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
First of all, last Sunday was it was one of the most important lives I think we've done, just helping people with that truth of understanding when it clicks over from thinking about what their voice sounds like to finding that power in their voice.
Yes.
And
yes.
I loved it. I listened to the video back.
I did too. I did, because it feels like when you can find ways that are actually really easy to do, to bypass the negative side of your ego and to tap into an instinctual, archetypical energy within you, which will guide you without any, there is no flaws in that. If you can type into the warrior within you, or the lover within you, or the king or queen within you, or the magician within you, when you know how to use these things, you can easily find that center within you. It's not hard to do it. There are no doubts. You can feel it in your body. Right. So I loved our conversation the last Sunday, because we touched upon these things and looked at them as tools to use in your everyday life. It's not something you do just for fun. It's something that you actually can do when you need to find the center within you, when you need to find your own truth, in a sense. I had a client this week, and he was a little bit stressed about meetings that he was going to have directly after our session. And I said, you know what? You need to tap into the warrior, not warrior, but warrior, the one right. with the power, and the king within you when you are in these meetings. So we had a little exercise, and he tapped into them, and he wrote back to me and said, OMG, I love this. It puts me in the right frequency, not to, win arguments, but be in a space where you feel that you're in control of your own space.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Having a vision is so important going into thinking of, well, what is the warrior? What is the king sets forth? Like what does success look like in these meetings? And one of the things I like to share with people, especially my wife and I talk about it, whenever like this live or any now moment, whatever we're going through, it's already happened. We just have to walk through it. So I always feel like whatever meeting I'm going into, it's already happened. It's already done. The end result's already, I just have to walk through it. So now how do I want to walk through it? Do I want to walk through it as the king, as the warrior, or do I want to walk through it as victim and scared? And I always think having the archetypes as the vision help us so much.
Yes, because what happens is that we all have our own version of the archetypes, these 4 archetypes. There are many archetypes, but these 4 specifically, we all have our own version of them. For me, and we were talking about that the last Sunday, that for me, the warrior is something that is in my chest. It is something that is primal. It is something that kind of, tightens my muscles in my back and makes me go like this with my hands. I feel the power within me when I think of the warrior. It's not about, trying to do something with other people. I mean, being mean to them or trying to win over them. The warrior is actually about putting you in a place where you act, where you find your truth and you actually act upon that truth. It helps you take a first step in the right direction. So when you connect to the warrior within you, you will intuitively know what is wrong and what is right for you. Of course, there is a negative side of the warrior. So that is why you need to be sure that you have a love-based perspective on the world around you when you tap into the warrior energy. So there is a difference. All of these archetypes have a shadow side and a light side, and we want to tap into the light side. So what we need to do is to understand what diverts this energy into toxicity or into something loving and beautiful. And it is if we allow the negative side of ego, which is always driven by fear, to direct it, it will come out as toxic. So the warrior becomes a mindless soldier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So it's very, very important to understand, what are we tapped into? What kind of perspective are we having when we're looking at the world? Am I looking at the world through a loving perspective, wanting freedom for everyone, not judging? Or am I actually in fear and trying to close down because I think that there is lots and lots of dangers out there?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's really important to feel, where is my perspective right now? Am I in fear, or am I able to be loving?
Fear. It's interesting, like fear. I was just thinking about the political heads of states and people in power. Very rare, if any, they might present themselves like they're coming from love. But at the end of the day, I think there's this fear-based ego driving all of them, that anyone that I've seen in every country, doesn't matter, political aisle, whatever. And I think what people need to understand is it's not how people present themselves. Ego and fear doesn't mean like shaky and afraid. Ego and fear could be so smooth like butter, but the smoothness is trying to validate the insecurity that the person has of, am I good enough, or am I smart enough? So it's sometimes not in the presentation. It's like the mindless soldier who just obeys and doesn't think about the consequences, versus a conscious warrior who loves. We talked about this. I took the kids to indoor water park last year, and there was this giant, really strong masculine man, and he had this tattoo on the back of his arm, and I loved it. It said, "Good men fight not because they hate what is in front of them, but because they love what is behind them." And I was like, that's such a cool way to, fighting, not the focus on the fighting part, but the loving, be either hating or loving, either fear or love and ego. Anyway, I just find that fascinating that the presentation doesn't have to look shaky and scared. It could be smooth as butter, but there's still ego and fear.
Yes, absolutely. And the fighting part is the smallest part of the warrior, actually. It's a question of taking action in the right direction from a love-based perspective. It almost never turns into violence when it comes from a love-based perspective. It could turn into violence if it's a question of protecting, someone standing at the doorway trying to harm your loved ones. But usually when we talk about the warrior, it's about being ready to take a step in the right direction, moving forward in the right direction. This goes for both men and women. When we live too much in our mind, we become overthinkers and we become overanalyzers of the world. That is to live in fear. And you dare not to take a step. This is where the warrior actually turns into something else within you. So it can become self-harm, or it can become harming others, but it's still a negative side of the warrior, so to speak. So tapping into the warrior frequency, the powerful place within where you can take a step in the right direction. That can be small things in your life. It doesn't have to be big things, it can be small things like, okay, tomorrow I'll sign up for this course, or tomorrow I'll try out this job, or tomorrow whatever it is, small steps. you still need the warrior to wake you up, to give you an initial, boost of adrenaline so that you do make a step in your life.
Yes.
And that's where you need to feel the warrior. Or if, say that someone has been abusing you and you no longer can take that abuse, it takes a warrior to kind of scream back, pull back, and leave. That's also a step, an action in a direction. It doesn't have to be violent. So not misunderstanding this, that the warrior archetype is always about the violence. It isn't. There is a destructive part in the warrior archetype. You need to destroy something that is not working for you. Sometimes destroying something, sacrificing something, is actually about sacrificing your own ego, which keeps you in victimhood. So the battle goes on inside of you most of the time as a warrior. It doesn't go on outside of you always.
And I think there's a distinction between violence and aggression. There's healthy aggression. Aggression is not negative. It's not just toxic. A dog, when it bares its teeth, when you get too close, is showing you the boundary, saying, stop. It just doesn't bite, it doesn't attack, it doesn't jump and pounce. It uses that warrior persona to say, you have come as far as I feel comfortable with you coming. And that is a healthy distinction between just violence and the warrior is out to fight. No, the warrior is out to protect, but not in a fear-based sense, in a love-based sense, saying, I love you, and I will communicate far that this is, in order for you to be whole and me to be whole, this is the line.
Yeah. What you're talking about, or this is what goes on in my mind while we're talking about this. We are talking about the shadow side of the warrior would be, when your actions are overdone, they're dramatic for the drama's sake, and it's like an egocentric. It comes from an egocentric place, like, see what I can do. Look, I am the warrior. It's like, look at my shiny armor here. The positive side of the warrior, or the light side of the warrior, sometimes you don't even know that the warrior was there and helped you. It is a question of tapping into something that is more divine, something that is of help for more just than yourself, that is a bigger cause than yourself, so to speak. So understanding that there are different sides, even in an archetype, that there is a negative shadow side in the archetype, which will become dominating, aggressive, and violent if it is filtered through a fear-based perspective. You can tap into that too, and it creates mayhem. It creates a world that doesn't know holiness and sacredness. It creates a world where fear is the basic foundation of it. And then you can tap into it when you look at it from a love-based perspective. This is why you need to be in contact with the lover from within too. When you are tapped into that perspective, the warrior within you will speed up the creation, in a sense, because you take action, you have the right direction, you have clarity, you know yourself, and you're pushing forward. That is an energy that is needed to push things forward. That is what the warrior within us will do. Right. So it's not just about reacting to danger on the outside. It is to understand that when you feel that you have stagnated, that you're maybe overthinking, stagnated, and sometimes you need this anger to say, no, I don't want this anymore. And then you start tapping into the warrior within you, and you start thinking about, what is it that I actually do want? Yes. But it has to be from a love-based perspective for the good of all. And then you can use that energy, that adrenaline boost to push yourself in the right direction. That is what this archetype is supposed to help us tap into. But as I say, it is really important that we understand, does this come from a love-based perspective, or am I looking through the lens of my negative ego, which will present me with a fearful world out there?
This is so fast. Okay, so my wife and I were having a conversation. Laura and I were having a conversation this morning, and she acknowledged that she was an ego and having some old tapes play in her mind. And it is she doing the right thing? Is it the right thing? Is it the right thing? Is it the right thing? And I said, there is no right. What does that even mean? The right thing. It's what do you want? What do you want?
Yes.
And it all will work out when you stay in the want, because that's where creation is made. That's abundance. That's affluence. That's everything in alignment. It's what do you truly inwardly. And I think when you're saying that warrior, sometimes like yell it or like what I really want to say is when we can find that space, there is no right or wrong. You could make a mistake, but it all works out perfectly when you stay true in alignment to what we want. But when we worry about what is right, then we give our power away to someone else saying that is right, that is wrong. And that is so constricting that it will never lead to abundance. It will never lead to our soul freedom. It will never lead to us really looking back at the end of our life and saying, I did it. I freaking did it. Like there's no one else that will be like, wow, they really did this for me. It's like, no, I
did it.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah. Tapping into what do I want?
Yes.
That's a hard thing. I think maybe I'm talking from my own perspective, but I wonder if it's not a little bit harder for women in our society to say what they do want. For me, I remember in the beginning of my relationship with my husband, and he would say, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't practiced it. I was always doing what I was told.
Yes.
And it was the easiest way, because if I did something that I wanted, I would be scolded. So I had to do what I was told. And I never practiced my own choice, my own, looking at things and saying, I like that. I knew what I liked, but I couldn't express it because it was connected to danger in my world as a child. If I chose wrong, then my father would say, why did you choose that? That's stupid. Why did you do that? So it would create pain within me. It's better not to say what I want to choose than to say it and then be scolded. So I kept it, didn't talk about it. And then when I met my husband and he say, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. You can decide. So it turns out I am a warrior. I really am one. You cannot, I'm not adapting, and I'm not trying to fit in. This is a really strong part of me. But yet, as a very young woman, I was like, oh, you choose. I don't know. You choose. I don't know. That's so not my personality. That is the negative side of the warrior.
Right.
Becoming, I can't do this. This is not me, or becoming violent. So, and maybe I wasn't violent in my 20s, but I would say that I was abusing myself in a way, because I never tapped into what I wanted. I was always doing what others wanted me to do. So tapping into my warrior energy was to understand that I can make a choice, I can choose direction, and I can be responsible for that direction as long as it comes from love. And I do not need to explain myself to anyone as long as it comes from love.
That's right.
Real love. I'm not talking about the needy stuff and the murkiness. Real love on a higher level.
Yes.
So just understanding this, I think that we would be able to see how much power we have within us if we all could tap into the warrior energy. From a love-based perspective, we would see how much of this energy is actually held back because we're afraid. It takes courage to tap into the warrior within you. Like, sitting in school, not understanding what the teacher is saying. It takes a warrior to put out the hand and say, excuse me, I don't get it. Please explain again. That's a warrior mentality. You wouldn't say that it is that. You would say that the people who are, the children who are, aggressive are the ones that can tap into or channel a warrior. But that's not the truth. That is also a warrior, because all the other children probably don't get it, but they're too afraid to put out their arm and say, excuse me, I don't get it.
That's right.
there are subtle levels of this warrior archetype within each and every one of us, and it's instinctive. So this means that when you start being afraid, when you start looking at reality with a love, from a love-based perspective, it's almost like a natural way of you to be, to say, no, this isn't right, or I don't get this, please. Starting to create more space around yourself, starting to become more free because you know who you are. So you use it, you know that no one can hurt you as long as you stand in that power.
That's right.
So it's really important to tap into the warrior archetype within us, women included.
There's this component of, and Gloriana, I see your question, and I'll make sure we get to it. There's this, I think every single person on this planet goes through two elemental processes, water and fire. However, it's determined upon us who, and it might be a soul contract that we bring into this reality, but it also, I think, is determined on us whether we want to be iron or clay. And so iron and clay both use water to shape it. Iron gets dunked into the fire. I've talked about this before. It gets dunked into the fire, and it just gets the crap beat out of it over and over and over until it is precisely the intent it was meant to be. And once it's that perfect form, it gets dipped in the water to harden it and keep it that beautiful shape that it was intended to be. Clay, on the other hand, gets the water first. It's like this big life massage. And it's like, oh yeah, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. But once it's perfectly shaped the way it's intended to be, then it gets dunked into the fire. And there it becomes hardened and preserved in that perfect shape. And I think all of us have this component within us, whether we want to be in, and I think the determining factors between iron and clay, iron is in fear-based ego. And so life is going to happen to you over and over and over again until you find that lesson, and then you can finally find that relief. Versus clay, it's just almost submitting to this beingness of what am I supposed to be, and then go into the fire, finally find the courage. And I think why I'm bringing this up is the fire to me represents the warrior's forging. Like the warrior has to learn the voice. There's a look at all the tribalness. There's the warriors that use their voice, the halakha in the native lands. Like there's always this initiation into being a warrior. And I think all of us is in every level have the archetype of the warrior within us. And it's just determined on, will we be in fear or will we be in love through this process?
I think as you absolutely are absolutely right with this, we have all the four archetypes within us, and they're almost helping each other with their voices within us. So it's not a question of just knowing, okay, so I have a warrior archetype. It's not that. It's like you do have all of them, and you can tap into each and every one of them, or all of them together when you need them, if you know what their specific energy is like. And this is why I like to talk about the body, because you can use your mind and overthink stuff so much. Been there, done that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to understand how to tap into the energy instinctively or intuitively. So this is why I want to talk about, where does the warrior live in you, in your body? When we talk about this warrior energy, let's say that I want you to tap into something that never gives up within you, something that forces through any fear, something that saves lives when it's needed, something that is courageous and great. That's the energy we're tapping into. So again, when I'm asking, where does this live? And most people talk about the chest. Most people talk about the hands going like this. Haka is such a beautiful description of this, because absolutely not dangerous to anyone, and yet they are tapping into it. And I know that everyone listening to people doing the haka will feel the energy within them, and you go, yes, go, that's where we
Still right
are.
now thinking about it. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. And they're hitting their chest, and they go, ah, and making faces that are scary, almost like the Shiva god, the destroyer.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, you need to destroy something in order to come out on the other side. You're talking about the fire. Well, that is destructive in a sense. So
right.
coming out of it, tapping into this energy, if we want to tap into it, we need to feel it in our chest, in our shoulders, on our arms, and the voice within, and standing in that power position almost taps you into this without any effort. You don't need to think, oh, wait, what was the warrior now again? You just stand in a power position where you keep your arms in a powerful place and allow it to be vibrating in you. If you need music, find music that will help you connect to the warrior within you. So, and that you can do before you do a talk, maybe.
Yeah.
Go on a Zoom call, speak to someone that you really want to set boundaries towards.
Yes.
Doing that, setting yourself in that energy and asking the question, what would the warrior within me do? All I need to know, and then it comes. All I need to know, after doing that power position, feeling it in your body. I think that Tony Robbins does these things.
Yeah, he does this every time before he gets on stage, and
but I think he talks about these warrior and the lover and magician and queen and king in a very direct way. Also talks about a lot of the body, because that is where the emotions live. And trust me, emotion wins over thought anytime. So if you can tap into the emotion, you've already done your work. You don't need to do anything else. The emotion is there. The thoughts will follow the emotion every single time. So if you can imagine the warrior, feel it in your body, and then you tap into your mind by saying, what would the warrior within me do? All I need to remember, all I need to know, all I need to do, and then you listen. Because you're already in the vibration. If you start with your mind, it won't allow you. The ego will start telling you a different story. The reason we tap into these archetypes is because we want to change the story that goes on within. We want to change the voice that says, you'll never do that. Oh, you're such a victim again. And no, they're too strong. You can't do that. No, better stay here in this little corner and feel sorry for yourself. It's much better than attempting to do something, attempting to change something. But if you tap into the energy first, then you've bypassed all these thoughts and the story that the negative side of your ego, the shadow side of your ego, will try to tell you in order to keep you in victimhood or whatever it is that you're in. So you go through the emotions and then you tap into your mind by asking a question, because your mind is listening. Oh, there's a question, I need to answer it. And it will dip into the subconscious mind to give you the right answer, because you surpassed or bypassed the intellectual side of what your mind will tell you. That's why it's so important to do this. If we would have had a workshop in real life, we would ask everyone to stand up, and then we would make noises, and we would, stand up and really feel the power, playing music to that so that you can feel the power, the vibration within you. And then ask the question, and whatever pops up, that is the true answer.
That's right. The last week we talked about, or I brought up the pitch, volume, tone, cadence, PVTC. And when I think of pitch, volume, tone, cadence, I think of it in every one of the archetypes. So I think what a warrior uses in pitch, volume, tone, cadence. I think of what the king uses in pitch, volume, tone, cadence, or the gardener, or the magician, or the priest. Like, what is how things are said, when they're said, why they're said, the movement, the cadence, the flow. And when I'm thinking about the workshops, the men's retreat, or if we had people, and I talked about this last week, there's like this gauge where people start like, at first they're thinking, what am I doing? Well, this is kind of weird. All of a sudden it like, whoa, this kind of, oh, I can hear myself. All of a sudden here, they're like, oh, this is me. And this is what I've said so often. When I say no, it is no. And when I say yes, it is yes. Hands down, no question. And even I chaperoned my son's field trip this week with all these second graders.
Yeah.
And there's this one boy, sweet boy, but the teacher was like, good luck. And I saw why she said that. I could see how he just, challenging and running over. And I didn't intimidate him. I didn't, try to control him. I looked him in the eye and I said, no. And he was like, oh, okay, I get it. You mean what you say. This wasn't in threat. This was like, no.
It's not a negotiation.
There's no negotiation here. And that is the warrior coming out, and possibly the king probably coming out. That's the king in that moment saying there's no negotiation. But my point is practicing these, practicing using our voice, being in workshops or going and screaming into a pillow. Like, it takes practice. A king doesn't rule in wisdom, or a queen doesn't rule in wisdom just by happenstance, just by like, oh, I'm presented with the biggest problem in the world. And what am I drawing from? The warrior doesn't win whatever battle it's facing just by showing up. There's constant practice. And I think as we, as humans, practice finding our voice, understanding, am I coming from love? Am I coming from fear? If I'm coming from fear, where does it arise from? Who implanted that fear? If I speak up, what will happen to me? I don't even think the classroom is the place where we are afraid to speak up. It starts in the house, and then we go to the classroom where we don't have the building up of our strength in the home. So we take that fear into the classroom. The classroom takes us into society, and society leaves us at the end where we die. And it was like, well, what did you do? What did you say? Who did you impact?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It's about understanding that it's not important how long you've lived, but what you did while you lived. For me, you really have to understand that how much of your time were you connected to the divine self? How much of your time were you connected to eternity by being in the now moment? The more you're connected to eternity in the now moment, the less you age. The more you're connected to the divine self, the more you expand in your consciousness. So if you haven't expanded in your consciousness and you never were present in the now moment, have you actually lived? This is why we want to tap into these things, to help ourselves to be more present in the now moment and to make choices that are beneficial, not only for us, but for everyone around us. Because that is the way to spread a higher consciousness in this world. As you say, this little boy, he looked you in the eye and he said, okay, there's an archetype here. He doesn't say this in his head, but he understands it as a blueprint of a man. And that stays with him. That stays with him. He will say, once I met a man and he said no, and he really meant it, but it came from a loving place because I wasn't scared.
Right. That's right. That's it.
That's how it aligns. So that's where he can find that place in himself. If he never sees this, then how can he copy it? It doesn't exist there. He has to invent it within himself. So you help him by showing what it is. I remember when my younger brother used to come home to me and my husband. He is 16 years younger than me. So when he was around 7 or 8, 9, my other brother would sneak out with him and they would come and visit me because my father didn't want them to visit me. And when he came home to our place, I remember my younger brother looking around, feeling the calmness in the home, even though my husband was around. And I didn't think that that made any difference. I was thinking, okay, he's playing, he's probably relaxing, it's all okay. And now when he's a grown-up, he would come back to me and he would say, I used that as a template in my reality of who I wanted to become. I used your home and the energy and your husband's frequency because he was calm, he was kind, he was there, he wanted to help. And he used that as a hope that there is something else than what he was seeing in his home. So tapping into these archetypes, being the sovereign in a home, being the warrior, being the lover, being connected to your higher self through these archetypes helps you create blueprints for others. And that's not the goal, that is the bonus.
It's so beautiful because when just the way you describe that, it gets back to that, what do we want? It's all about creation. It's not about fear. It's not about stagnation. It's not about scarcity. It's not about feeling stuck. We're never, ever, ever stuck. Ever. When we bypass the negative fear-based ego, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, when we're in fear, it's either yes or no. It's a binary choice. But when we pause and like, well, what other options are there? It opens up this vastness. And Gloriana asked, she said, do you guys think that fear takes us to a lack of confidence, the other way around, or it's going to depend on the situation and person? So I think she's asking, does fear strip away our confidence? And I would say yes.
Yeah, it doesn't strip it away. Your confidence can never go away. It dims your perception of it. It shadows it because it's a too low frequency and your confidence is a high frequency. So it's outside of the frequency of fear. It's there, but you're not able to perceive it because fear puts a shadow around it. Fear becomes the light and shining only on what fear allows you to see. Fear is a lower frequency. So everything that is outside of fear, it's like looking like this. Your confidence is somewhere here, but fear allows you to see this. So how could you might even say there is no confidence. I can't see it. I'm trying, but I can't see it. And that makes you fearful. What if I lost my confidence? You can't lose it. It's inside of you. It's a question of heightening your frequency so that the fear won't be the one driving you, and your confidence, you come closer to your confidence. Your confidence doesn't move. It stands and it is in the same place all the time within you. But fear doesn't allow you to see it because it's a too low frequency. I know what Gloriana is thinking right now, even though I don't know Gloriana that well, but I think that she's saying, okay, so how do I heighten my frequency? How do I stop being afraid? How do I stop judging myself? By bypassing it through these things that we are sharing here, by playing around with the archetypes, finding the goddess within you, finding the magician, the fairy godmother within you that says nothing can touch you. This is your true power here, not what you've been told since you took your first breath here. Because what we're looking for is the truth within us. We're not looking for what we've been told. We're looking for the center of the power within you. What happens is, in our society, we live in a society where I don't know if I'm using the right word here, but it's almost like we want to be in the sacred space, but our society wants to keep us in a profane space. A sacred space always has a center, which is within you, and that is where the power is. So everything radiates out through that. If you have a sacred view of reality, if you have a profane or mundane or common view of reality, there is no center. There is no, you're an accident in a cold world. There is no center. So if you do not tap into the sacredness of you, you will be pulled into the worldview that we have, at least in the Western world, that it is, if you can't prove it, then it's not there. Right. If you can't see it, hear it, feel it, or taste it, not there. So it becomes profane, it becomes mundane, it becomes everyday life, nothing sacred in it, no center. Where do you look for your power? Well, you try to find it on the outside, because maybe there's a center, but you can't see it because it's outside of you. But when you tap into the sacredness, when you tap into the archetypes, when you tap into your own psyche and your own consciousness, you find that everything is there, as it is within you, as it is within me, as it is with everyone. So in a sense, there is no one center. There are many centers, and it's always within. Yes. And it's a battle. It's an inner battle between believing what we're told about the reality, our creation, Maya, the illusion, and the truth within ourselves, the one looking at this, creating it, and using the illusion, Maya, or whatever we want to call it, as our 3D world.
That's right.
You can never find the total truth on the outside. You have to go within, because that is where the center is, the sacred center.
There's finding the sacred center. There's a real life person that said a quote, and we use it in our course. I bring it up in our course. And then there is a movie called The Watchmen, and this character Rorschach says something very similar. But Bruce Lee said, when you find yourself trapped within a room full of your enemies, do not think I am trapped in there with them. Rather think they are trapped in here with me. And Rorschach in the movie Watchmen he's one of these archetypes, and he gets thrown into prison, and they're like, you think I'm scared? You think I'm scared? I'm not in here with you. You're locked in here with me. And it's such a absolute, it's such a contrast to how fear makes us feel like I'm in here, things are going to happen, but the full alignment of wherever I go, others are experiencing me, and there I am. That's right.
Yes,
and that is, man, I wish we could I want to bless everyone with finding that, no longer having our parents' voices in our head or anyone's voices in our head, simply our own sovereign soul. And you helped me. I said this on this podcast I was on the other day. I shared this perspective. You've helped me come to this perspective that we're all souls from the same source, having our own unique experiences within these ego containers. And instead of judging another, we should ask one another, how's your experience going?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. How's your spirit? Instead of asking, how are you?
Yes.
Absolutely. I was thinking about a quote which I read this morning, actually, which is very appropriate to what you just said about you're in this room with me. I think that we are conditioned to understand that we're insignificant. There's so many other people that are like us, so we're insignificant. And I think that it is, Carol S. Pearson says this. She says, taking your journey requires you to leave behind the illusion of your insignificance. That means to sacrifice the victim or the martyrdom, to sacrifice the ego's craving of you staying in your comfort zone, which is victimhood. You have to sacrifice that in order to understand who you truly are and the real power within you. Of course, I'm not talking about, thinking that you're better than everyone else. You are unique and you have everything you need. You're born with everything you need within you. Which means that all the power that you will ever need is within you. If you're experiencing powerlessness, then there is a blockage somewhere where you're not allowing yourself to see the power. It is always there. You cannot use it to change others. You cannot use it to force others, but you can use it to explore who you are and open up so that you, like a trailblazer, show others how to find that power within. It is never about pushing. It is always about opening up like this. So if we stay in this place where we think that, but I'm a victim, I was so victimized by this one and that one, we rob ourselves of our own lives. So I love this quote where she says, taking your journey requires you to leave behind the illusion of your insignificance, the illusion of your insignificance. There are billions of people on earth, and everyone is significant because everyone is unique, and everyone is giving source a unique perspective on this illusion that we're creating. Equally valid to the source. Source doesn't say, that's not as good as this. Right. Source says, thank you for the experience.
That's it. Yeah.
But you have to be present in the now moment if you want to give something back to source, which is actually coming through you. So being present in the now moment, being aware of your divine connection to source, and also being aware of all the power that this divine connection contains within you.
It's really interesting. I'm struck. Thank you, brother Blake. Blake says, so good, y'all. And I like the y'all. I like the y'all, Blake. I just moved to Texas and I'm trying to incorporate that.
Yeah, Blake is such a beautiful soul. I love Blake.
So awesome. I don't know if I have the words yet to articulate what I'm going to say, but I've been observing that in ego, the matrix will always give an opportunity for the ego-based persona to be part of something to find significance. So what's the next banner that's going to show up on the Facebook profile? What's the next cause? What's the next thing? There's always a thing. And it seems like I'm tracking all these people as if they believe that they've been given 100% of all knowledge of the situation just through 60-second stories on the news. I mean, it's just so wild. However, I'm tracking the same people always in the same cause. It's another cause. I'm like, man, this is something fascinating where people feel part of something, I believe, when they don't understand that they are the thing that they are a part of. Meaning, if they don't find the significance in themselves, they're going to look for it in the ego fear base that I'm meaningless, I'm insignificant unless I join another club. And this is what I was saying maybe last week's live or the week before that. When we go on this journey, when we leave our fear of us being insignificant, there will always be camps saying, join me in this, take on whatever title. Religion will give you loads of titles to jump into. Even philosophy will give you loads of titles, institutions, education. And I think our job as sovereign souls experiencing this life is to look at them, acknowledge them, play with them, but never become them.
Yes, because if you try to become something from the outside, as I said before, you're looking for a center outside of yourself. It comes back as pain because that is not the way. You can't do it. You can't do it that way. I have another quote by Carol S. Pearson, actually, and it's so beautiful because you're talking and I found the quotes before you said this. So this is so cool. It resonated so well with me. And she says, the man who becomes obsessed with success has already failed. So it's very close to what you're saying. If you're obsessed by finding or to find something outside of you that will define you, that will give you an identity, success or whatever it is, you've already failed because you cannot find your identity in an illusion. You have to seek your identity in the real thing, the one looking into this illusion. That is your true identity. Then you can play around, as you said, you can play around with it. You can say, okay, I like this. I'll explore that. And source goes, thank you for exploring that. This is exactly what I wanted to explore. And you're exploring it and playing around with it. And it might shape you a bit, but it can never change who you are deep down inside. It can become a part that you're exploring, and then you might change your mind or not, stay in it for a while, and then you look for something else. This is what I called following your excitement means. Your excitement will always lead you to the purpose of your life if you follow your excitement. So if you follow your excitement, this is funny now, or this is what I'm interested in now. For me, my excitement has always been in the human consciousness. So I explored quantum physics, I explored metaphysics, I explored philosophy, I explored psychology, and all of these things are vibing beautiful, but I am none of them. I'm only collecting.
Good. Yes.
I am a collector of knowledge or wisdom or thoughts that I incorporate and then allow them to change me within so that I can allow them out as a new creation. But I can't say that, oh, this is me or that is me. That's a part of my identity here, but it's not me. I am exploring it. So, when people ask you, so what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I cannot answer that question.
That's right.
I can't, because that's such a small part of who I am. Ask me, how's your spirit? And I'll tell you. So it's futile to think that you will find your identity on the outside. You have to find it on the inside and tapping into it. And I think that today we'll only have the time to talk about the warrior. I thought we were going to talk about more, but we'll stay in this, and we can continue each and every one of the archetypes and go deeper into them in a way. Looking for your way to connect to the sacred space within you, here is a tool to do that in a very, very fast way, to tap into your own voice, to tap into the narrator within you that will help you write the story in the right way. If you don't connect to these archetypes, maybe you're able to connect to your higher self. Maybe you're able to connect to this center within you, and you don't need all the tools to do that. And that is beautiful. You know your voice, you know what's wrong and right always within you, and that is beautiful. So you don't need the guidance. But sometimes all of us need a guidance, a voice that will direct us in the right direction, to change the narrative. That is what it is supposed to help us do, because the narrative, the stories that we tell ourselves, become our life. So imagine if you can tap into, the magician within you, and the magician starts talking, telling you that, you know what, this is not as hard as you think. I can help you with this. Using that voice to write a new story, changing the narrative, changes our lives always.
Yes.
Allowing you to slowly change your life.
From within. Too, as you're sharing that, all of a sudden my mind went to math. In math class growing up, I was like, I always struggled. Struggle is not even the right word. I really struggled in math. In fact, I talked about in my TED talk, when I was in third grade, I got a 48 out of 100 on this math assignment, and I was bawling my eyes out, too afraid to bring it home. I was going to get hurt. And math, I struggled with even through college. Probably up until, and this is what I find so fascinating, now math becomes more easy for me. When I started to heal, my healing journey, like part of my left brain relaxed, or something where I was able to, because you're saying the magician's like, I'm thinking the magician saying, hey, it's all going to be all good. I can let's figure it out. Let's look at it from a different perspective. But when I was in such ego and trauma and fear and identity, it's like my mind could not go there. It was like, I don't know the answer. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. All these things. And then it manifested in not trying or giving up or cheating or scamming or becoming sneaky versus like within me, I have all the answers. Okay, what's a different way to look at it? And so I don't know why math is coming up, but I guess what I'm sharing is like my healing process, and not being in the fear-based ego allowed me to open up to these other archetypes. That has helped me so tremendously now. And I've seen the physical manifestation of I can do math now, even though I don't need to do math. Like
Yes, there are two components to this: the relaxation, and also that math is actually a universal language, which means it's almost like an archetype.
Oh, that's interesting. That's so good.
So when you tap into this creative space within you where you're open, it's easier for you to find the frequencies where math is. I mean, in school, I remember, because math was hell for me. And I was thinking, I'm a girl, I don't know math. This is how it's going to be. So I have to work harder in order to understand it. And I had to work hard to understand it. That was the only subject where I had to spend hours and hours and hours to understand it. And the same thing happened to me when I moved away from home. And I decided that I was going to take up math to see if I can learn it. And I was 21 at that time when I started to relearn math again. And I felt it was so easy. I was thinking, how did I not get this? How is it possible that I didn't get it? And I understand that if you have someone standing beside you with a watch, clicking time, watching how you will solve it, that will stress you out, and you will not be able to connect. You will not be able to connect to your higher self and connect to the universal truths. To just be in that space will help you solve the thing. The other thing was that I was in a constant stressed ego and fear-based perspective. I couldn't release myself from it while I was at home. So of course, fear won't let you to connect to these archetypes. Fear won't let you to see how easy math is. If you learn certain basic principles, then you can play. It's like a dance. You can play around with math if you want. This is, by the way, one of the reasons why I started thinking about quantum physics, when I realized that math is not such a hard thing, actually. What more can I do? What's hard? Quantum physics, let's go there.
That's great.
That was the direction it took. So I think that if there's anything that our people, Sunday Live people, need to take from this Sunday Live, is that connecting to the archetypes helps you bypass the ego. If you can relax a little bit and trust the process, it goes faster. And this is how when you connect to the archetypes, you actually also bypass the fear. Because ego holds, the negative side of ego holds the fear.
Yes.
So bypassing it by playing around with these archetypes, it's really such a good tool to do that, to bypass the ego, and trusting that it will connect you to what you need to be connected to in the right moment, using the right archetype in the right moment.
Yeah. So good. It's so beautiful. These are awesome. I really enjoy these, even though it's us doing them. I love these so much. And thank you everyone for watching. Suresh and Gloriana and Brother Blake. Thank you everyone. And thanks, Gordana. Thanks for always being amazing. And
you too, Lucas. I love
finding those great quotes at the right time.
Yes, this is so beautiful. And this is what synchronicity does, because synchronicity is the glue that holds everything in place. This is the intelligence behind this illusion that we're creating, synchronicity. And when you're present in the now moment, it always shows up. Always. This was mind-blowing for me. I was thinking while I was looking at the quotes, I thought, oh, they resonate so well within me. I might not use them, but I'll put them here. And it was perfect with what you were talking about. So it's so beautiful.
I love it. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next Sunday.
Yes. See you all. Bye.